Have you ever gone through a kitchen remodel? If you have, then you understand the nightmare that can happen. As your counters arrive the wrong size, your kitchen cabinets are 6 weeks late, and the contractor that you hired disappears, and the new one that you bring on board gives you an estimate for one price, and then at the end hands you an invoice for 3 times that amount. So what happened? How can you avoid this in the future? One of the reasons why we came up with the core process is just this scenario. We had so many situations that seemed to go out of control at some point, and we realized that there were some steps we should follow and some steps that we could skip to make sure that at least everything was covered along the way that was core and that was necessary in the project. The core process presented in this movie is the bare bones approach that should be the basis of all site iterations, large or small. In the following chapters, we refer to iterative site design over and over again, and the core process presented here should be applied to every initiative throughout your redesign process over the next 12 to 24 months. This is the Cliff Notes version, or the condensed overview, allowing you to see from beginning to end the 5 processes and how they fit into the bigger picture. The core process comes from the book Web Redesign 2.0, Workflow That Works. And that's really what it is, a workflow that works, something that's designed to fit into projects both large and small, anywhere from $2,500 all the way up to $250,000 and beyond. These are elements that we consider to be best practices, tips and tricks we've learned over time and through hundreds and hundreds of web designs and redesigns alike. Now, one thing I want to be clear is that although this is considered a core process, we're not saying this is absolutely perfect. We encourage you to modify this to fit your specific type of project as you need. We're offering this as a series of guidelines that not only will your team understand, but your client and key stakeholders can buy into the process and understand not only how long something is going to take, but why you're doing things the way you're doing them, what elements and deliverables are important, and how you can streamline this process and make it the most effective and efficient possible. This is a great example of how teams sometimes disconnect during a process. This shows how the customer explained it and how the project leader understood it, how the analyst designed it and the programmer wrote it, how the business consultant described it, and my favorite, how the project was documented. It follows up looking at operations and customer billing, support, and in the end, what the customer really needed. We're really focused on user-centered design, and that's what this process is all about, designing for that end user. The core process breaks into 5 steps. First, we have define, which covers discovery, planning, and clarification. The main goal of this phase is to gather as much information as you can that's relevant to your project and put it together into what we call a communication brief that's going to help align stakeholder vision and goals. At the same time, you're also going to do your traditional project planning, which is setting the budget and schedule and team, and making sure that you have your process and set of deliverables clearly articulated for both your team and your client, internal or external. Phase 2 is about site structuring, but making sure that you address content development and understand who's responsible for the content in the end, while at the same time you're putting together the site structure from a bird's eye view and also a page-level layout, taking a look at naming and labeling, and if necessary, user tasks. Now, if you're dealing with any back-end elements or technical needs at this point, you're going to want to integrate it into the site structuring phases. Phase 3 is the design, the fun part. It's creating and confirming and handing off, making sure that you're taking into consideration the strategy, the branding, the user goals, and in the end thinking also of how you're going to translate that into HTML and utilize what we're calling adaptive technologies such as JavaScript and Ajax into the overall process to create a more fluid user experience. The build phase is extremely straightforward, prep, build, and test, and we're not going to go into that much detail in this title because there's so much information available out there, both in the lynda.com online library and online. Phase 5 is launching and measuring and making sure that you're set up to test and iterate and plan for that next release the quarter after you launch the first site. You want to not only deliver the materials that you may forget if you're not disciplined, including the style guide and the handoff packet, but you want to plan for and conduct a meeting after you launch so that you can sit down and figure out what you did right and what you can improve the next time. You want to think about search engine optimization or SEO strategy and make sure that you're planning for maintenance, looking at who's going to maintain the site over time and what they need to think about. So here we have the core process overview, presented in stages 1 through 5, allowing you to see clearly the roadmap ahead and what you need to think about in order to create and plan for that ultimate user experience. We've just looked at the entire core process workflow, which allows you to see the entire process in a glance. In the next few movies, we'll look more closely at each stage in turn, with the end goal being creating the ultimate user experience, along with creating a frame of reference for client and team alike so that you can understand why the process is important and how you can immediately implement these processes into your redesign today.